We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
And that's when I decided I'm going to murder my mother.
I can strangle her again, and that finally killed her at that time.
And let me kill the rest of those guys to turn me into a serial killer. I know they did.
So I alone am the one who's responsible for what's happened.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay.
Hi everyone! مرحبا جميعا على قناتكم The Narrator. هذه القناة تجدون فيها مجموعة متنوعة من المحتوى والقصص من جميع أنحاء العالم، حيث سنناقش مواضيع مختلفة، منها القتلة المتسلسلين، الطوائف والأديان، الألغاز والقضايا التي لم يتم حلها، والقضايا المحلولة، والكثير من ذلك في المستقبل. لذا لا تنسوا الاشتراك في قناتنا والضغط على زر الإعجاب. في الحلقة تاع اليوم رايحين نهضروا في الفقرة تاع القتلة المتسلسلين. كما لاحظتوا في الحلقة اللي فاتت ولا الفيديو اللي فاتت، هضرنا على ريتشارد راميريز، وهو قاتل متسلسل مشهور جدا، لكن ما هضرناش على القصة تاعو ولا كيفاش حتى تحول وأصبح قاتل متسلسل. في قصة من القصص اللي جازوا اللي هي قصة تيد باندي، تكلمنا على الشخصية تاع تيد باندي، عن القصة تاعو، قصة ضحاياه، وكذلك حللنا الحالة النفسية لتيد باندي. وهذا ما سوف نفعله مع جميع القتلة المتسلسلين الذين سوف نتكلم عنهم في المستقبل، اللي حيكون منهم تيد باندي وريتشارد راميريز، كل القتلة المتسلسلين سواء كانوا مشهورين أو غير مشهورين. في القاتل المتسلسل تاع اليوم اللي راكم حتى تعرفوا عليه هو جيفري ليونيل دايمر. ولد في عام 1960 21 مايو، وتوفي في عام 1940 28 نوفمبر. هو قاتل متسلسل أمريكي كان يقتل الذكور والشباب اليافعين بصرف النظر عن جنسيتهم. معظم ضحاياه قتلهم خنقا، ثم قام بتقطيع جثثهم وسلخ جلودهم واحتفظ بهياكلهم العظمية أو أجزاء منها. كي نقراو برك هذو ما نقدروا نشبهوه إلى القاتل المتسلسل اللي هدرنا عليه من قبل، تيد باندي، اللي كان يحتفظ بأجزاء من الضحايا تاعو كسوفينيرز ويخبيهم عنده. إذا تفكرتوا الحالة النفسية تاع تيد باندي، he used to do this لأنه كان يحب يعاود يتفكر ويعيش الفانتسي تاع كامل الجرائم تاعو. النهار اللي كان يدي souvenirs parts of the bodies اللي كان يقتلهم، كان يشوف فيهم ويتفكر كيفاش دار هذيك الجريمة والشعور اللي كان فيه، because they used to feel a lot of pleasure. كانت عندهم متعة كي كانوا يقتلوا الناس. بعض الأحيان كان يحتفظ بأجزاء كاملة من الجثة ويقوم بأكلها. ارتكب جيفري جريمته الأولى في سن 18 سنة، وضحيته الأولى كان في عمره 19 سنة. عندما كان مراهقا كان مدمنا للخمر ووحيدا، تم طرده من الجامعة وأرغمه والده على الالتحاق بالجيش. بعد 2 فقط تم طرده من الجيش نتيجة لإدمانه على الكحول. لم يكن دايمر يرغب في لقاء والده، لذا انتقل للعيش مع جدته التي عاش معها لمدة 6 سنوات، ثم طلبت منه المغادرة عندما اعتقل بتهمة ما. ألقي القبض على دايمر في عام 1991 عندما هرب أحد ضحاياه وأدين ب15 جريمة قتل. بعد إلقاء القبض عليه تمنى دايمر الموت ولعن نفسه نادما على جرائمه. في 28 نوفمبر 1994 قتل دايمر على يد زميله في الزنزانة، ومات نتيجة الإصابة البالغة في رأسه. كان هذا التعريف تاعنا على القاتل المتسلسل جيفري ليونيل دايمر، اللي راح نعرض القصة تاعو عن قريب مع قصة ريتشارد راميريز، وحنحلوا الشخصية أو الحالة النفسانية تاعهم وشخصيتهم على العموم. الآن سوف نعرض مقطع مترجم لإنترفيو من الانترفيوز المشهورين لدايمر جيفري.
I desensitized myself to it. I don't know, I went to great lengths.
He is pure evil, but you'd never know it by looking at him. But when you hear him, that's another story.
His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen? For the first time ever, Nancy Glass is here inside the world of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Bill, when I sat down opposite Jeffrey Dahmer for this interview, I wondered what he would tell me, how hard it would be to get him to discuss his horrific crimes. What I found was that he was very forthcoming. He volunteered details that may be difficult to hear. I began by asking what he wanted from the men he picked up.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them?
Right, right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Jeffrey Dahmer is recalling his monstrous past. Almost 2 years ago in this little apartment in Milwaukee, police discovered the grisly remnants of one of the most horrible crime sprees in American history. Jeffrey Dahmer, an unassuming chocolate factory worker, would eventually confess that he had seduced, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men. He even ate some of his victims' body parts. He instantly became the center of worldwide media attention, a serial killer unmasked. There were protests and press conferences in Milwaukee as people tried to understand how this could have happened in their midst. How did Jeffrey Dahmer get away with murder after murder for 13 years? How did a boy born into a hard-working middle-class family turn into the worst kind of monster imaginable? In this exclusive interview, we put those questions to Jeffrey Dahmer himself. We met with him at the maximum security prison where he is serving his sentence of 999 years. For the first time, he talks about his crimes and gives us a chilling look inside the mind of a serial killer.
It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure instead of a living, breathing human being, it seems to make it easier to do things you shouldn't do.
The reason why Jeffrey Dahmer was able to get away with his crimes was because of just what you are seeing here. Jeffrey Dahmer is intelligent and articulate. That is what makes him so frightening. But if you listen carefully to his words throughout this interview, you realize it is a thin disguise. You do sound, though, like the kind of person who could have said to himself, "This is wrong. I must stop."
I always knew that it was wrong, but after the first killing was not planned. I was coming back from the shopping mall back in '78. I had fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control and dominance over him.
The hitchhiker's name was Stephen Hicks. He was just 18. Jeffrey Dahmer took him to his parents' house. There he strangled him with a barbell. He dismembered the body and hid it in a drain pipe. It was Jeffrey Dahmer who gave those details to the police in his confession.
No one had a clue as to what was happening for over a decade.
During that time, Jeffrey Dahmer joined the Army and was sent to Germany. He was eventually discharged for a drinking problem and returned to Ohio. 9 years after Stephen Hicks' murder, the killing began again. What happened to you in the 9 years in between that you were able to stop, that you were able to control yourself?
It just wasn't an opportunity to fully express what I wanted to do. There was just not the physical opportunity to do it then. And I started, when I moved to Milwaukee in '81, I started reading pornography, going to the bookstores, Eventually that led to frequenting the gay bars. And then one time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. Had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here, was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And you have no memory of it?
I have no memory of it. But that's what started the whole spree all over again.
Dahmer says he snuck the corpse of his victim, Stephen Toomey, out of his hotel room in a suitcase. Then he took it to his grandmother's house, where he cut up the body and put it in plastic garbage bags.
When you killed these men, afterwards, were you repulsed? Were you upset?
No, at the time, it was almost addictive. It was almost a surge of energy. I wouldn't have to worry about any of their needs or anything. I just had complete control of the situation.
But Jeffrey Dahmer was out of control. The urge to kill had overpowered him. As police later learned, he wasn't satisfied with his victim's death. He wanted more.
Why did you photograph them?
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep something. If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons. And I even went so far as planning on setting up an altar with the 10 different skulls and skeletons.
And what was the purpose of the altar going to be?
As a sort of memorial. A point where I could, I don't know, it's so bizarre and strange, it's hard to describe. A place where I could collect my thoughts and feed my obsession.